So I will try to read to the end of the canto, and then we'll go back and look at it in more detail. King Aswapati has descended into the very depths of the world of falsehood. And there he is doing a work for the divine. In a world where neither hope nor joy could come, the ordeal he suffered of evil's absolute reign, yet kept intact his spirit's radiant truth. Incapable of motion or of force, in matter's blank denial, jailed and blind, pinned to the black inertia of our base, he treasured between his hands his flickering soul. His being ventured into mindless void, intolerant gulfs that knew not thought nor sense. Thought ceased, sense failed. His soul still saw and knew. In atomic parcelings of the infinite, near to the dumb beginnings of lost self, he felt the curious small futility of the creation of material things, or stifled in the inconscient's hollow dusk, he sounded the mystery dark and bottomless of the enormous and unmeaning deeps, whence struggling life in a dead universe rose. There, in the stark identity lost by mind, he felt the sealed sense of the insensible world and a mute wisdom in the unknowing night. Into the abysmal secrecy he came, where darkness peers from her mattress grey and nude, and stood on the last locked subconscious floor, where being slept unconscious of its thoughts, and built the world not knowing what it built. There, waiting its hour, the future lay unknown. There is the record of the vanished stars. There, in the slumber of the cosmic will, he saw the secret key of nature's change. A light was with him. An invisible hand was laid upon the error and the pain, till it became a quivering ecstasy, the shock of sweetness of an arm's embrace. He saw in night the eternal's shadowy veil, new death for a cellar of the house of life. In destruction felt creation's hasty pace, new loss as the price of a celestial gain, and hell as a shortcut to heaven's gates. Then, in illusion's occult factory, and in the inconscient's magic printing house, torn were the formats of the primal night, and shattered the stereotypes of ignorance. Alive, breathing a deep spiritual breath, nature expunged her stiff mechanical code and the articles of the bound soul's contract. Falsehood gave back to truth her tortured shape. Annulled were the tables of the law of pain, and in their place grew luminous characters. The skillful penman's unseen finger wrote his swift, intuitive calligraphy. Earth's forms were made his divine documents. The wisdom embodied, mind could not reveal. In conscience chased from the world's voiceless breast, transfigured were the fixed schemes of reasoning thought. Arousing consciousness in things inert, he imposed upon dark atom and dumb mass the diamond script of the imperishable, inscribed on the dim heart of fallen things, a paean song of the free infinite, and the name, foundation of eternity, and traced on the awake, exultant cells, in the ideographs of the ineffable, the lyric of the love that waits through time, and the mystic volume of the book of bliss, and the message of the superconscient fire. Then life beat pure in the corporeal frame. The infernal gleam died and could slay no more. Hell split across its huge, abrupt facade as if a magic building were undone. Night opened and vanished like a gulf of dream. Into being's gap, scooped out as empty space, in which she had filled the place of absent God, there poured a wide, intimate, and blissful dawn. Healed were all things that time's torn heart had made, and sorrow could live no more in nature's breast. Division ceased to be, for God was there. The soul lit the conscious body with its ray. Matter and spirit mingled and were one. I apologize for this frog in my throat. It's a very, very significant moment in the poem when King Asvapati triumphs over the world of falsehood and moves into another realm completely. Having gone to the very depths of the falsehood, he's lifted up. So I'm glad we can read this passage together today. Mariana, would you like to start? Would you start reading from line 382 on page 230? Just read a sentence or two.
In a world where neither hope nor joy could come, the ordeal he suffered of evil's absolute reign, yet kept intact his spirit's radiant truth. Incapable of motion or of force, in matter's blank denial, gold and blind, pinned to the black inertia of our base, he treasured between his hands his flickering soul. His being ventured into mindless void, intolerant gulfs that knew not thought nor sense. Thought ceased, sense failed, his soul still saw and knew. In atomic parcelings of the infinite, near to the dumb beginnings of lost self, he felt the curious small futility of the creation of material things.
Thank you. We can hardly imagine the horror of this experience when you find yourself in a world where there's no hope, no joy, and you feel the suffering of the absolute reign of evil. King Asvapati has this terrible experience, but he is able to keep intact his spirit's radiant truth. He says he's treasuring his soul, the flickering soul, like a candle about to go out, being blown out by a breeze, no? He's jailed. He's unable to move, to do anything, no force, no strength. He's jailed, he's imprisoned in matter's blank denial, the blindness and unconsciousness of primitive matter. And it's as if he's pinned down, something is holding him down to the black inertia, the inability to move, no, of our base. That's the very base of our existence, is that inconscience. But in that terrible experience of the dark base of things, he's still able to treasure between his hands his flickering soul, to protect it and keep its flame of truth alive. And he even goes further. He goes on exploring. His being goes even further into soulless emptiness, into gulfs which are intolerant, which will not allow any thought, not even any sense experience. So for him also, thought ceased. He can't think anymore. He can't feel anymore. And yet, his soul still saw and knew, is still aware and conscious. And he's aware, he becomes aware of something at the atomic or subatomic level of existence, of matter, atomic parcelings of the infinite, as if the infinite has been cut up into small pieces and wrapped up, divided into very, very small particles. That process of division is near to the dumb beginnings of lost self, of self that is not conscious, not free. There, on that level, he feels how apparently useless all this is. This curious, small futility. What is it for? This creation of material things. If we would be able to make ourselves very, very small and go into that subatomic world, we would wonder, what use is all this?
Shraddhavan, I have a question about yet keep intact his spirit's radiant truth. When he keeps the spirit radiant truth, I have just coming like that in my mind. Why he suffer? But the spirit...
It seems that in order to get this great realization, which is a big step in the quest that he's undertaken. We've been following King Asvapati for so many pages now, 230 pages, since he started his quest, his search for a force, a truth, a light that would make it possible for a divine life to exist on earth. That's how he set out with. And so we followed him through these different planes of existence, and there came a level, quite a high level of life existence, where he discovered that even though it's such a high level and even there are very beautiful and fine things there, he can't go any further. There's like a barrier that he can't overcome. And in order to find out the meaning of that barrier, he has to start going down. So we've been going down now through Canto 7 and Canto 8. We followed Asvapati on this dark journey, terrifying journey. But I love this passage that we've come to today, because at the very, very bottom of all that futility and mindlessness and unconsciousness, he finds He finds the key. Where does he find it? On the last locked subconscious floor. So as far as you can go down, it's locked, you can't penetrate it. That's where he found the key. There's a key to the change that he wants to happen. And when he finds that key, then everything changes for him. I think it doesn't yet change for the world. That's what's interesting about this passage. Because when we come to the end of Canto 8, or even Canto 9, when he gets projected into the paradise of the life gods, he still has a long way to go on his journey. But for him, something absolutely crucial has happened. No? For him, the soul lit the conscious body with its cry, and matter and spirit mingled and were one. And he feels the divine presence in and behind everything, controlling everything. But I think up to this point, this is an individual realization. It's not yet the realization he wants for the transformation of the world. That doesn't come until Book 3. Yeah. Who will read next? Tomoko, would you read? Yeah. We can start with line 396.
All stifled in the inconscient's hollow dust, he sounded the mystery dark and bottomless of the enormous and unmeaning deeps, whence struggling life in a dead universe rose. There in the stark identity lost by mind, he felt the sealed sense of the insensible world and the mute wisdom in the unknowing night.
Thank you. So it's stifled. Stifled, it's when you're smothered, you can't breathe, no? Somebody holds a pillow across your face, stifles you. So he's stifled in that hollow darkness of the inconscient. And what he's doing, he's going right down to the very bottom. He sounded the mystery, dark and bottomless, of the enormous and unmeaning deeps, whence struggling life in a dead universe rose. So this is part of the evolutionary process, no? To sound, it's what sailors used to have to do when they were sailing in their ships. It was very important for them to know where the bottom of the sea is. Otherwise they could get wrecked on rocks or anything. So in order to find out how deep the sea is, they would put a weight, a piece of lead or something, tie it onto the end of a long rope and throw that rope over the side of the ship and feel when it became loose, when it was not tight anymore. No? This is called sounding. And it's a word which Sri Aurobindo uses quite a lot in the poem in a metaphorical way, in a psychological way, to sound something, to get to the bottom of something. So that's what he's doing here. He's sounding this strange mystery, this dark and bottomless mystery of the enormous and unmeaning deeps, like a huge deep ocean, out of which, whence means from where, whence struggling life in a dead universe rose. There was a time in the history of our universe when there was nothing living. But somehow the possibility of life was there, and it was struggling to emerge. And in earlier cantos, Sri Aurobindo's described in detail the different levels and times and processes by which life has step by step from these dark and meaningless deeps, how it has developed and grown and until it is something that we recognize as life. You read, Dana?
There in the dark, stark identity, last by mind, he felt the sealed sense of the insensible world and a new wisdom in the unknowing night. Into the abysmal secrecy he came, where darkness peers from her mattress, grey and nude, and stood on the last locked subconscious floor, where being slept unconscious of its thoughts, and built the world not knowing what it built.
This word stark is a bit difficult to explain. It means absolutely undecorated, hard and harsh, and nothing soft and gentle about it at all. This stark identity, he's able to identify with that state, that last subconscious floor. Mind can't do that, but he's able to experience that oneness, to know that state by oneness. And because he does that, he can feel the sense, the meaning, and the significance of what seems to be a world that has no senses, has no ability to feel. He feels that in this insensible world, which is the very basis of matter, there's a meaning which is sealed up, it's kept secret, and he becomes aware of a silent wisdom in this unknowing night, in this state of blackness and darkness, where there seems to be no knowledge, no consciousness. He realizes that within even that, there's a silent wisdom. Abysmal means it's something very deep, dark, down and dark. To the secrecy he came. And it's as if darkness is a being. It embodies a being. No? And that being, there she is, sleeping at the very bottom of the inconscient. And it's not a luxuriant palace or anything like that. She herself is grey and nude, she has no covering, and she's peering, she's trying to see. He came to that place where the spirit of darkness or embodiment of darkness is lying at the very bottom of everything, like a poor old woman in a hovel in the dirt and darkness. So Asvapati stands on that last floor, that lowest level, which seems to be locked up. We can't reach it. But he realizes that being, that pure existence, which is behind everything in the universe, is there, even though it's sleeping, unconscious. It's even having some kind of dreams, some kind of thoughts in its sleep. And those thoughts which it's having are actually creating things in the world. Those thoughts build the world without knowing what they're doing, what they're building, what they're creating. So who's next to read? Philomena?
Their waiting gets over. The future lay unknown. There is the record of the vanished stars. There in the thunder of the cosmic wave. He saw the secret key of nature's chains. A light was with him, an invisible fire was laid upon the earth and the pain, till it became a quivering ecstasy, the shock of sweetness of an arm's embrace. He saw in night the eternal shadows laid, knew death for a sevener of the house of life. In destruction felt creation's hasty pace, knew loss as the cry of a celestial pain, and felt as a short cut through heaven's gate.
Thank you. He realizes that in that lowest level, the future is preparing. The future lay unknown, waiting for its time, for its hour. He realizes that everything that's happened in the past of the universe is recorded there. And although the universal will seems to be asleep there, Asvapati can see that on that level, there is the secret key by which nature can be changed, by which everything can be changed. So that changes the meaning of everything for him. Suddenly, a light is with him. And it's as if the hand of the Lord is taking his hand and touching all the terrible things, all the things that hell is full of, the error and the pain. And the touch of that hand turns everything into bliss, into a quivering ecstasy. He feels this shock of sweetness. If Sri Aurobindo would come and touch our shoulder, we would feel that shock of sweetness, of that arm's embrace. And Asvapati sees in this night with a capital N, this terrible darkness, he sees that it's just a veil, a shadowy veil of the eternal. And he realizes that this, which seems to be a place of death and darkness and nothingness, it is only just, it's the downstairs room, the bottom room, where in a house. Here in India we don't often have cellars, but in European countries, houses usually have cellars, and those cellars are used for storing things. But they may also be very neglected places where mice gather and dust and dirt and, So all this horror, it's just a cellar, just the bottommost house in the room. In the room in the house, sorry. And he feels that everything we think is dreadful, that we fear destruction, that it's not so bad after all. It's actually necessary for the new creation to come. It has to come quickly. When it has to come quickly, then there may be a lot of apparent destruction. He knows that even losing things that seem very precious to us, this may be just the price we have to pay for winning some absolute heavenly treasure.
This is the description of what is the key, secret keys.
What happens to him, what he realizes when he finds that key.
But what is that key?
What is the key? Well, I think it would be this knowledge.
Exactly. Okay.
And the light that comes, the touch, the understanding, all that. And then he suddenly realizes, oh, this is the way nature can change. Mother has described an experience like this, Ganga Lakshmi will remember, of going down, down, down into this harsh, black, impenetrable, black, like rock.
13 April 1962.
But when she reaches the bottom, then it's as if there's a spring, she touches a spring there, and it springs up, and it's filled, it's spreading everywhere the seeds of a new world. She's described that in one of her messages, New Year messages. So this experience must be something similar to that, reaching the very bottom of the darkness and seeing that that's where the new light is coming from. So he knew that loss, even whatever he might have lost in the past, it's just the price to be paid for this heavenly, winning this heavenly treasure. And what we think of as hell, all this unbearable falsehood and suffering, that is only a shortcut to the gates of heaven. Bhavana, would you read?
Then in illusions occurred factory, and in the inconsensus magic printing of Tom were the formats of this primal mind, and shattered the stereotypes of ignorance. Alive, breathing a deep spiritual breath, nature expanded her stiff mechanical core, and the article of the ground soul's content also came back to keep a tortured shape. Under were the tables of the Tao of pain, and in their place grew luminous characters. The skillful penman's unseen finger wrote his swift, intuitive calligraphy. Earth's forms are made his divine documents. The wisdom embodied, mind could not reveal. Inconscience changed from the world's voiceless breast. Transfigured were the fixed schemes of reasoning thought. Arousing consciousness in things inner, he imposed written on the dim heart of fallen flame, a beyond song of the free infinite, and the name, foundation of eternity, and traced on the awake exultant self in the
ideographs.
ideographs of the ineffable, the lyric of the love that fades through time, and the mystic volume of the book of bliss, and the message of the superconscient fire.
So wonderful. So it's as if everything gets reversed. No? Falsehood gave back to truth her tortured shape. Truth doesn't need to be tortured anymore. And the law of pain is just wiped out. And in their place, Asvapati sees luminous writing. He sees that the skillful penman, the poet who is creating the world, he's writing, his unseen finger is writing across the whole universe his calligraphy. Calligraphy is beautiful, decorated handwriting, not just simple printing or a scroll. Very, very beautiful and meaningful handwriting. No? And so, all the forms of the earth, the material forms, become part of the divine documents of that skillful penman. And they embody these wonderful writings, embody truths and wisdoms that mind can't show us. Only we need this wonderful, beautiful, expressive handwriting of the Lord to show them to us. So in conscience, unconsciousness is just chased away. It's not there anymore. All the fixed schemes of our mind, our reasoning thought, they get transformed, transfigured. That penman, that skillful penman with his calligraphy, he imposes on the basis of matter, on the dark atom and the dumb mass. There he's writing this diamond script of the imperishable, of the supreme. And he's inscribing, he's writing on the dim heart of all us fallen beings and all the fallen things. He's writing on our hearts a paean song of the free infinite. A paean is a song of triumph and joy, of victory. A paean song of the free infinite. And he's also writing the name with a capital N, the name of the Supreme, which is the foundation of eternity. And he's writing on the cells of material things, our bodies. They wake up when he writes on them. They get extremely happy. They exult, they smile, they laugh. No? He's writing in the ideographs. Ideographs, the Chinese writing is made up of ideographs. When we see words in Chinese writing, they can be pronounced in different ways. People in one part of China will pronounce like this and somewhere else. But the meaning is the same. They are ideographs. They are it's writing which carries a meaning. So the ideographs of the ineffable, of the Supreme.
They are not letters, no? They are words actually.
They are words, yes. They're made up of different symbols, but the important thing about them is that they're different from our alphabets, where each letter has a sound, and from our grammar, where the order of words has a meaning. Just the little picture, well, that symbol in itself has a meaning. And what he's writing, the lyric, the beautiful love song of the love that waits through time. And he's writing the mystic volume of the book of bliss, of ecstasy, and the message of the superconscient fire, the energy, the light and force and energy which is beyond consciousness. So then, for Asvapati, his experience is that life, his experience of life is changed. For him it becomes pure, even the life in the body, the corporeal frame. Then life beat pure in the corporeal frame. And that infernal, that hellish gleam, that terrible light of falsehood died, and it has no more power to destroy. And this illusion of hell, of a place of eternal falsehood and suffering, it just splits, dissolves. It looks very big and impressive, but suddenly it's like an earthquake has shaken it into bits. It's as if a magic building were undone. So night itself opens up and vanishes like a gulf, like a huge ocean of dreams. And into that space which has been scooped out by night as an empty space, into that gap where night and falsehood has seemed to fill the place of absent God. Instead, there pours not night, but a wonderful dawn, a wide, intimate, and blissful dawn. Healed were all things that time's torn heart had made, and sorrow could live no more in nature's breast. Division ceased to be, for God was there, that one divine presence uniting everything. So the soul, in the lit up the conscious body with its light, and matter and spirit, it's as if they melt together and become one thing. There's no separation between spirit and matter. Matter and spirit mingled and were one.
This part of description showing the whole maybe the secret key of the nature. This part is very interesting.
Yeah. So we had to travel through such a dark passages to come to this last page here. But when we come to it, it's so uplifting and inspiring and comforting and reassuring.
Shraddhavan, in night in which she had filled the place of...
This is night. Night. In a world where neither hope nor joy could come, the ordeal he suffered of evil's absolute reign, yet kept intact his spirit's radiant truth. Incapable of motion or of force, in matter's blank denial, jailed and blind, pinned to the black inertia of our base, he treasured between his hands his flickering soul. His being ventured into mindless void, intolerant gulfs that knew not thought nor sense. Thought ceased, sense failed. His soul still saw and knew. In atomic parcelings of the infinite, near to the dumb beginnings of lost self, he felt the curious small futility of the creation of material things. Or, stifled in the inconscient's hollow dusk, he sounded the mystery, dark and bottomless, of the enormous and unmeaning deeps, whence struggling life in a dead universe rose. There, in the stark identity lost by mind, he felt the sealed sense of the insensible world and a mute wisdom in the unknowing night. Into the abysmal secrecy he came, where darkness peers from her mattress, grey and nude, and stood on the last locked subconscious floor, where being slept unconscious of its thoughts, and built the world, not knowing what it built. There, waiting its hour, the future lay unknown. There is the record of the vanished stars. There, in the slumber of the cosmic will, he saw the secret key of nature's change. A light was with him. An invisible hand was laid upon the error and the pain, till it became a quivering ecstasy, the shock of sweetness of an arm's embrace. He saw in night the eternal's shadowy veil, knew death for a cellar of the house of life. In destruction felt creation's hasty pace. New loss as the price of a celestial gain, and hell as a shortcut to heaven's gates. Then in illusion's occult factory, and in the inconscient's magic printing house, torn were the formats of the primal night, and shattered the stereotypes of ignorance. Alive, breathing a deep spiritual breath, nature expunged her stiff mechanical code and the articles of the bound soul's contract. Falsehood gave back to truth her tortured shape. Annulled were the tables of the law of pain, and in their place grew luminous characters. The skillful penman's unseen finger wrote his swift, intuitive calligraphy. Earth's forms were made his divine documents. The wisdom embodied mind could not reveal. In conscience, chased from the world's voiceless breast, transfigured were the fixed schemes of reasoning thought. Arousing consciousness in things inert, he imposed upon dark atom and dumb mass the diamond script of the imperishable, inscribed on the dim heart of fallen things, a paean song of the free infinite, and the name, foundation of eternity, and traced on the awake exultant cells in the ideographs of the ineffable, the lyric of the love that waits through time, and the mystic volume of the book of bliss, and the message of the superconscient fire. Then life beat pure in the corporeal frame. The infernal gleam died and could slay no more. Hell split across its huge abrupt facade as if a magic building were undone. Night opened and vanished like a gulf of dream. Into being's gap, scooped out as empty space in which she had filled the place of absent God, there poured a wide, intimate, and blissful dawn. Healed were all things that time's torn heart had made, and sorrow could live no more in nature's breast. division ceased to be, for God was there. The soul lit the conscious body with its ray. Matter and spirit mingled and were one.